Well, hey man, it's great to finally hook up with you. It's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the program. I appreciate it.
Not a challenge at all. Not a challenge at all. Good to have the opportunity to greet. Thanks for connecting.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, before we get into your life, very busy, motivated existence that you have, I want to know COVID did all kinds of different things to all of us. And I'm curious how you survived that time period now that everything's kind of waking up and how it's changed the way that you live your life now.
It's interesting. I refer to it as the pandemic. And for, in some ways, lightheartedly as a acronym, but also because of the amount of dynamics and how people were impacted by it. Fortunately, because we've been practicing this concept of virtual investing going back to 2017, the pandemic really threw fire on what was already a good business model for us and made it just that much better. And there's a couple different ways I can describe those dynamics. I know we'll get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing I do want to kind of segue into just to make sure that everyone understands exactly what you do. So I'm going to put you hypothetically in front of a bunch of grade school kids, third graders, career day. One of the children looks up at you and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
Yeah, my goal is to be the best servant I can to others. It is only by engaging and helping others accomplish things they want to do. If it's in that classroom setting, making sure that the skill that I have in terms of picking out the right colors to do the grade school work, combined with maybe my friend who actually can get inside the lines a little bit better, is how we all engage to one make our friends better, but then also growing at ourselves. That's kind of like the little lessons that we teach as adults, but also can bring that down to just a very tender school age as well.
There's a genius in youth too. They understand that. They can kind of deduce those things and get after it in a different way than adults. We have all these fences and things that we've put around us, but children have this kind of unfettered imagination, so to speak.
Yes, yeah, they do. It's a wonderful thing. We need to be more childlike. Make sure we laugh every day.
That's right. Absolutely. So let me ask you this. When you were in that seat in the third grade, what was your dream growing up? What'd you want to be?
It's interesting. I can remember watching on television, and I share this with my children and stuff. It's a great question. Um, Growing up in New Jersey, about an hour from Manhattan, there would be this television commercial about a limousine service and how the limousine service would pick you up from your home and then take you to the office building. And so the idea was that, man, I really wanted to be that individual that was chauffeured around in a limousine, that the work that I put in had garnered the type of success, the type of resources, whatever that was in that, three-year-old, third grade mind. That's what I wanted to aspire to engage in, and all the other, accoutrements, whatever they came to that. And what I really discovered as we mature through life, that it's that I wanted to live a life that was extraordinary, but not extravagant. It is the relationships that have been able to be formed and built in over several continents, and the experiences that come from those relationships that was spurred on by those television commercials when I was a kid, that have made this life just so much fun to live.
And you obviously come across very immediately as a very highly driven person. And I want to know, in that drive that you have in your life, take me back to the beginnings. Where were you born and raised? And what were some of the seeds that were planted into you that have grown into who you are today?
Yeah, born in Philly, raised on the Jersey Shore. My dad was 43 when I was born. I had three younger sisters. Um, my mom, fortunately, I still have her, 82 years old and living in Atlanta. It was a wholesome upbringing, but we had challenges. Our home burnt down, and I wound up having wearing clothes from my classmates for about the next year and a half, and they would tease me about it. It's like, oh, I know those pants. I used to own those. And so there's different character that is built within you, because my mother would share, it's like, no, we're rich because we have our faith, not because of the things that we have. Discovered an amazing work ethic from my dad, who was taught himself to be a chef coming out of working in the merchant marines from World War II. And it was those fundamental, I guess, dynamics that said, look, it's not what you have, because what was the they used to say, don't worry about someone else, what someone else has, because you don't know where they got it or how they got it. And that was something that has stayed with me, and I'm glad I remember it. And your question kind of spurred that on as well, which goes back to an extraordinary life over an extravagant one. Because again, well, how somebody else got their Maserati, or their Mercedes, or their house on the hill, you just don't know. And so framing up these little foundation things, coming what was still, I guess, what you would say is a modest middle class upbringing, to transition on to college, get into the workforce. I wish I chose my job better, though, as I share, because I was in hospitality, which is, my dad told me, you need to know how to cook, but you really don't want to work in that business. And I
Right.
went immediately to work for Church's Chicken. So, and in that, I actually got robbed at gunpoint 3 times.
Wow.
And the first time, the second time, because of the setting I was in, the mindset that I had, it was, this is where I live. This is what I have to do, provide for my family. And it literally, it was like, 3 strikes and you're out, or the third time, that really made me realize that I, as an individual, have more worth than the setting that I was in. And there was a need to push beyond what at that time would have been essentially some limited thinking.
Absolutely. So in this journey you've had in life, who's been kind of a hero or a role model for you?
Wow, it's definitely been my parents. My dad was just a phenomenal. He was that guy that could do absolutely anything. He learned carpentry from his father, so when we did have that fire, we rebuilt most of the home ourselves. Utilizing the different skill sets as a carpenter, and all the trades that come with it: installing, installation, doing electrical work, plumbing, doing masonry, putting bricks out. It was amazing what he could do. And I often say, even though my father's been gone some 40 years now, there are things that I engage with him mentally, and I swear he's gotten smarter every year. It's stunning to me. And then, of course, my mother, who has been this wonderful sounding board of wisdom, to always be mindful, to be respectful and care for each other. Haven't been perfect at it in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but she's always there. Just the thought of some of the foundational things that she taught us when we were kids. So absolutely positively, my parents, and then it extends to grandparents, aunts, and uncles that have had influence as well, but most directly my mom and my dad.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would it be? Who would you love to spend some time with?
There's a phenomenal gentleman, Mr. A.G. Gaston, who was from Birmingham, Alabama, born in the late 1800s, and didn't pass until he was like 103. And at the
Wow.
time, he was by far just one of the most significant individuals in terms of holdings and net worth, well into the 100 millions. And he did this coming through the 1910s, 1920s, with Jim Crow laws and everything that would say that it absolutely positively could not be done. Here's a man that met the Queen of England, that in the 30s and 40s sailed to Europe and the United Kingdom, was able to build substantial businesses, and was still creating businesses in his 90s when he finally retired. The thought process, the capacities are, he had this one thing that he only violated once. He said, find out what someone needs, what a community needs, what businesses need, and then go provide that. And only one time did he open a restaurant because he wanted to open one, as compared to meeting a need in the community. But everything else that he did, utilizing that philosophy, was positively, absolutely successful based on the history of his life. So there's some conversations I would love to have with Mr. A.G. Gaston that would be edifying. And then I'd also want to be in a situation where I could pass on the legacy of those conversations. I have the books that have been written by his granddaughter and daughter, which are, that have a wealth of information, but man, a conversation with him would be absolutely invaluable.
Absolutely. So what is it for you every day we get up, we get out of bed, we have these things that we want to do with our day and with our lives. What is the motivator for you? What's been a consistent motivator that's driven you to be who you are and to accomplish what you've done in your life?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. And I'll frame it this way. Having transitioned from hospitality and into real estate as a real estate appraiser, building an appraisal firm so large that I was able to sell that firm, started investor comps where we've served the investors domestically and internationally going back to 2006, which helped build this lifestyle that afforded me the opportunity to start competing in Ironman races. I want to celebrate my 50th wedding anniversary, and triathlon just seems to be a really good way. I'm not really excited about doing a whole lot of weightlifting, but man, I can swim. I did that in high school and college. I love biking. I'm still learning to love to run, but in the work of doing that, I discovered Arise to Live, and it's awaken with gratitude, realize anything is possible, have intentional focus, strengthen your mind and your body so that you can execute with excellence. Well, I had to awaken every morning excited that one, I knew who I was and I could get up and go on my way. For those two things, each and every one of us can be grateful each and every day as we awaken. Doing an Ironman is something that you absolutely positively have to realize it's possible. Otherwise, you have doubt in yourself.
Yeah.
It takes focus. You have to be in a situation where you follow your training plan, where you do the work because no one else is going to do it for you, and you have to do it in an intentional way. You do have to fuel properly. You have to strengthen your mind by reading and discovering what are the different things that are going to keep your on-the-go daily business activities going on as you train for this endeavor. And as a result of awakening, realizing, having good focus, and strengthening your mind, your body, you can go execute with excellence. And I did. My business has thrived all along the 6 or 7 months when I was doing the very first race back in 2017. And by God's grace, since then, I've done 9 more and have finished every race that I've started. So I really transitioning, love to share the concept of Arise to Live each and every day.
So obviously, as someone that's an athlete that has a sports bend, let me ask you this kind of in a fantastical way. If you could go
Sure.
back in history and go to any sporting event and watch it firsthand, what would you go see?
Wow, that is a good one. Wow. I am not, this is spirit of moment, stream of consciousness. I am not a soccer fan. I don't know the rules, nothing. But there were a couple of documentaries about Pele when I was a teenager and just how amazing he was with the reverse kick and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I would love to have been in an arena in Brazil or something like that and see Pele play in his youth. That would
yeah,
have been something that would have been absolutely amazing and inspiring, I'm sure.
absolutely. So, what's been one of the best client responses you've ever gotten? Best fan letter you've ever received?
Wow. Fortunately, we do get a number of them. I think that I'll just use a recent one. We do a number of projects, which is part of virtual investing. And in particular, we do some in the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico with some small single family, even some multifamily and commercial. And the best ones are ones that are completely unsolicited, where certainly we ask for testimonials from our clients, but this is one from a gentleman that I've really had an opportunity to get to know, play some golf, and then he wound up saying, let me deploy some capital with you. And we did it. It was a 9-month term. It came back, it paid. And he was just, in essence, saying, thank you so very much for engaging and doing what you said you were going to do. And actually, we closed out like a week and a half ahead of time. So it was actually even an extra compliment of and ahead of schedule. So that's those type of testimonials that that feed into the good work that I love to do in the real estate space, but in particular because it was completely unsolicited. I think those are the ones that come in that really have the most value.
So, let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could use the wisdom that you've gained in your life, the things you've overcome, the things you've been successful at. You could give that young version of you a piece of advice. What would that piece of advice be?
It's funny. I'm doing a collaborative book with "Dear Younger Me" is the title of the book, and literally we write to our younger self. And in that engagement, it really is one. Well, it's two things. One is be in a posture where you can say you're wrong. It's okay to be wrong because you learn from those mistakes. And then the other component is just being a constant measure of learning. Never, never, never get to the point and lots of young people are in that space already. But for me individually, there was a point in time where I just was never wrong for about 18 months or so, and I had to mature beyond that space. And you made that comment. I feel like I could have a conversation with the president. It's like you couldn't have a conversation with the mailman. So be willing to say you're wrong and constantly be in a posture of learning. Never, never, ever stop learning.
So, of all of the accolades you've gotten, I've seen the medals and the trophies. What was the one that was the most special? Not a favorite one, but one that you got that you were like, "Wow, I've arrived. This is great."
There's any number of different dynamics that go into that, but I'm going to go with one that is personal and speaks to the relationship and bond in marriage. I've been recognized by the 100 Black Men of America. I've been recognized by Jack and Jill Foundation. I've been recognized by international organizations from Jakarta for articles I've written on valuation. I've been awarded from clients in Italy. I'm a member of the new golf club in Scotland. A number of different things that spanned, I wouldn't say span the globe, but that have a far reach. But very simply, my wife is a special lady. Of she's not a cheerleader in any way. She doesn't jump up and down. She's very much an introvert. And we had the very good fortune. We love Argentine beef, and we discovered Malbec wine, and we took a wonderful anniversary trip a few years ago to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and to Mendoza. It's down there for a couple of weeks, and just towards the end of the trip, my wife we were having a chat in the morning, and she said, in her own way, just the subtle way she says, "This has been a really nice trip." Now, we had private guides to tour Buenos Aires. We had played golf in Buenos Aires with members of the Augusta National. We had played golf in Buenos Aires. In Mendoza, we had had several wine tours. We had time for ourselves. It was any number of things. That took engagement to prepare, plan. All she had to do was come. It was that was it. In her own simple way, she said, "This has been a really nice trip." And what I do is I take and I translate that message that says, "I just can't believe you did all this together. How did you ever pull this off?" Because if you don't, I mean, for some, if for a lesser mind, I share this in a broader way, you could complain about, well, you didn't pour me a glass of orange juice this morning. You don't do this for me. Great. What my wife did was share in her own language the absolute best compliment I could have ever gotten. And I'm so very, it's been almost 10 years since then.
Wow.
But when you ask that question, the best accolade literally has been those simple words. "This has been a really nice trip." She didn't say
Cool.
great. She didn't say phenomenal. In her own body language, she said, "This has been a really nice trip." And look, stick me with a fork. I'm done. I could go today and it all would be well.
So let me kind of piggyback off of that. Of all of the things that you've done and accomplished in your life up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
Wow, man, being a dad, we have 5 children. All of them have degrees. We're very fortunate to have grandchildren as well. And certainly our youngest son, we took everything we learned from all the other kids, not only earned his Eagle Scout, but an appointment to West Point, the United States Military Academy. Those are the things. There's, I mean, I've played golf on the old course in Scotland. Matter of fact, I played golf on 6 continents. There's a number of things that go into this dynamic of a broad, experienced life, but it still goes back to the core elements: family, being a dad, being a husband, having a faith. Those are the things that still propel all the other good that's coming from. Right now, I'm working on a project, 50 and 40, a first team mission. We're going to play 50 golf courses in 50 states in just 40 days, raising money for the First Tee Foundation, which brings youth to the game of golf, which teaches trustworthiness, patience, how to basically live into a good life that embraces other people. That's a very substantial and significant project that we'll do and will have legacy to it. But it's only as a result of having good core values, knowing that I never want to be in a situation where I have to get held up at gunpoint working to sell a chicken anymore. It's been a progression, and it continues to be. If we have this conversation again a year from now, certainly there'll be a different dynamic to it. But overwhelmingly, those are the things I share as we care and share right now.
So, of all of the people and the pockets of people that know you, there's a light that they all know you in, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you ultimately drive the bus. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
First and foremost, as a business owner and then someone that is engaged in the world in different projects, I think of myself as a servant leader. I'm in a position where, yes, I'm out front, but the best way to garner engagement for others is willing to be a servant to them as I lead. Willing to, one, give of myself. So you want to have your hands open at all times. One, so that you can certainly receive, but also so that you can be in a position where you can hand off and give. So whether it's talking with my son-in-law and describing, look, it's time to get life insurance. You've got, 2 children now. You want to make sure, you're in a position to be a provider. Working with my asset manager and our property management and guiding his efforts in terms of making sure that the asset has the proper lease in place, and or if that lease is being transferred to us, vetting that lease to make sure that we have the right resident. If it's working with my client relations department head, where we're nurturing everyone that we serve, sending out birthday cards. We've got clients that are new grandparents. We make sure we acknowledge those things. The investing is great, but it's all about putting off this posture of being a servant leader and being engaged in people's lives. That's where the relationships really come together, and then the experiences that foster the goodness of the relationships that are built. So servant leader is really how I see myself, and I enjoy filling and living into that space.
So, things change over time. When I was asking you about the best fan letter, it was more of a recent one. So, my question, I'm just curious, if we
Yeah,
were to layer in some music for a soundtrack right now for you, something you're really digging into lately, what would it be?
I love a lot of music. The thing that allows me to settle and be thoughtful and productive and reflective are Gregorian chants.
Cool.
Uh, most of them are basically a cappella,
Mhm.
but they have a wonderful melodic rhythm to it that fills the spirit and the soul, but also is very motivating, invigorating of what is possible. So while I would say out of the ordinary, Gregorian chants really stir my soul.
I like that answer. That's great. MJ, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, hire you, anything revolving around your world, where's the best place for them to go?
TheMarkJackson.com. Go right there. We've got plenty of information for folks to care and share and engage, as well as reach out and make contact. TheMarkJackson.com.
Excellent. Mark Jackson, this has been great, man. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything. There's so many great things that are going on in your world, and I'm glad that you opened them up for me. I appreciate it.
It is a joy. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it, Jeff.
Thank you. Take care.
All righty.
Bye bye.